Hi guys, so I've been away for a little bit because I've been having some technical difficulties, but I'm coming on today to do a quick one-take video, and it's going to be entitled In Christ Alone. The inspiration behind this one is something that was actually said to me Sabbath gone. As those who are watching from my church would know, you would know Brother Lee Gall, and during lunchtime he was talking to my sister about the Sabbath school program she would have done, and in that he said a statement, because we ended up discussing briefly her program, which I missed because I was teaching the children, but they also went into a little bit of the lesson and the fact that Jesus redeemed us, that we are adopted, and that we're no longer slaves to sin. And one thing that he said really struck me, because sometimes I find myself in this position. He said, we don't exhibit, this is not verbatim, and I am sweating, today is very hot, so forgive the grease, okay? Don't get blinded, put on your shades. But he was saying that sometimes we don't exhibit the faith in Christ, we don't take him at his word because we walk around guilty because of things that we would have done, when in truth and in fact our salvation is not based on what we do, it's based on what Christ has done. And what struck me was the sentence when he said, you don't have to walk around guilty, Christ freed you from that. That was the essence of what he was saying, and it pretty much coincided with something I watched, I think last week. It had to do with a prophecy series, but it was talking about how the gospel of Christ, the good news of salvation, how it was displayed in prophecy. And the pastor that was preaching it was Manny Arteaga. And he pretty much said in that his life changed when he realized, and it actually stuck out to him, that it's not about do, it's about what was done. And so that really struck me. And then this week I heard the song In Christ Alone by Phillips, Craig and Dean, and that pretty much summed up the lesson perfectly. Like, if you've not been able to read and go through the lesson so far this quarter, or you miss a couple, this song to me brings out the entire essence of the gospel, the entire essence of salvation, the entire essence of what they're trying to bring across, at least in last week's lesson, regarding our adoption, our redemption, the fact that we are no longer slaves to sin. And I'm moving a bit quickly, but I hope you're getting the point. That comment by Brother Charles and other things that I watched was opening the gospel to me in a new light. It wasn't, not like the light on my face, but it opened it up in a new light, because even though you hear it, you still go around and sometimes feel guilty for long. I mean, in the initial recognition of your sinful state, yes, you become humbled and you just feel like, oh my goodness, I need Christ. But then that's where your hungering and thirsting after righteousness comes in, and you realize that it's not based on what you did, it's not based on what you do, but your salvation, your saving is based on what Christ has done. And so I wanted to share pieces of the song In Christ Alone, because I think that this song, like every time I heard it this week, it perfectly, to me, sums up the essence of the gospel. And so I'm going to share particular lines with you. And the first one is, in Christ alone my hope is found. Hands down, feet up. In Christ alone. Your hope is not found in anything else. Next, till on that cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I live. And I thought that portion was important too, because it's in Christ that we live. We die to self, the old man is put off and cast away, and we rise with new life in Christ, because Christ is now living in us. As Paul says, nevertheless not I, but Christ who lives in me. The other part that I thought was amazing was the part that said, and as he stands in victory, since curse has lost its grip on me, for I am his and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. And last week's lesson spoke about our adoption, our redemption, the fact that we were bought by Christ. And it went into the fact that we no longer belong to the slave master. We are now sons. We are now heirs by adoption. And so in any instance where we end up under sin and allow ourselves to be entangled again by that yoke of bondage, which I think Paul mentions in Galatians 5:1. If I am wrong, I will put up the text. But the only reason we then end up entangled again by that is because we choose it. Because Satan no longer has dominion over us when we are adopted by Christ. Christ has redeemed us. He has died for us. We are no longer condemned under the law. We no longer have to be slaves to sin, whereby we serve sin and commit sin left, right, center, all day, every day. No. We are now alive in Christ, and Christ can live out His purpose in us once we avail ourselves to Him. And so I thought that was really great. The part that said, what did I just read? The part that said, here in the death of Christ I live. And not only that, the part that said, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am His and He is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. I really hope this coming through to y'all, because everything tossing around in my head, because the song really excited me, because I know it was recapping pretty much everything that lesson was about. And not only just the lesson, it was pretty much displaying in song, in words that we can understand the essence of the gospel. So that part I loved. And as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am His and He is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. And I wanted to share the very last verse in its entirety. No guilt in life, no fear in death. Remember, the first thing I told you was that Brother Charles was saying sometimes we walk around guilty and we don't take God at His word. We don't have to have guilt in life. So the song says no guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. I cannot even. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from His hand. Till He returns or calls me home, here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Satan can't get me back. You telling me God come and die for me and redeem, and I can run back to the devil? Satan no longer has any control. Yes, he could cause, God will allow him to, cause persecution in our lives, bad things, but God can use all those things for our betterment. So He ain't got no control. At the end of the day, he's a defeated foe. Dead. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from His hand. Because when God bought us back, when He adopted us, we were made sons and daughters of God. We are no longer under the control of the slave master. Okay, we are no longer slaves to sin, that we must serve sin, but we are adopted. And the final thing I want to share is this: in every victory, let it be said of me, my source of strength, my source of hope, in Christ alone.